She actually grinned when she handed me the violation notice. 30 days, she said. After that, the dock is gone. I stared at the paper in disbelief. I'd spent 12 years living on this lake, and now the HOA wanted to wipe away a piece of my property, as if it had never existed. I almost laughed, because sitting inside a drawer in my house was a deed that didn't just cover my lot. It covered every inch of shoreline she was standing on. The HOA president had no clue what she'd just started, and she definitely had no idea who she was picking a fight with. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe because these HOA stories somehow keep getting more unbelievable every week. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? I bought my lakefront home 12 years ago. It was exactly what I wanted. Calm water, towering pine trees, a peaceful view every morning. The dock stretched out over the lake, built by my father and me during the final summer before he passed away. To most people, it was just a dock. To me, it was one of the last things I ever built with him. For years, life was simple. Nobody complained. Nobody bothered me. Then Linda Pruitt became HOA president. Everything changed after that. Linda treated the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. She obsessed over every tiny detail. She measured lawns, criticized paint colors, and acted as if every house belonged to her. Within a few months, she had ordered matching mailbox colors, issued fines over harmless decorations, and renamed the community Facebook page Lakeside Excellence Alliance. Most residents thought she was ridiculous, but nobody challenged her. Neither did I, at least not in the beginning. Then one Tuesday morning, I walked outside and found a bright orange notice taped to one of my dock posts. Unauthorized shoreline structure. Remove within 30 days or face daily fines. I read it twice, then a third time. There was no way it could be right. That dock had existed long before Linda ever moved into the neighborhood. I called the HOA office immediately. Linda answered. Her voice sounded sweet enough to pour over pancakes. "Oh, that old dock," she said. "The board believes it's become an eyesore. It hurts property values." Property values. My father had helped build that dock with his own hands. I told her I wasn't removing a thing. She let out a short little laugh. "You will," she replied. "Trust me." Looking back, I should have paid closer attention to that laugh. It sounded confident, but it was really a warning. The fines began almost immediately. $50 a day, then $100. Linda even posted the violation publicly on the community bulletin board, so everyone could see it. Neighbors who used to wave when I drove by suddenly avoided looking at me. At the next HOA meeting, I stood up and tried to explain my side. Linda interrupted before I could finish. "This matter has already been decided," she said. "The board has spoken." That phrase irritated me more every time she said it. The board. She made it sound like some powerful government agency. The truth was far less impressive. The board consisted of Linda, her cousin, and a man named Walt who agreed with everything she said because he hated confrontation. I walked out of that meeting furious. Then I did something Linda never expected. I contacted an attorney, not to defend the dock, to investigate the land beneath it. My family had owned that property since the 1960s. I vaguely remembered my father mentioning an old deed years earlier, something separate from the house itself, something connected to the original development of the lake. At the time, I hadn't paid attention. Why would I? My attorney, Renata Cole, dug through decades of county records. A few days later, she called me. For nearly 10 seconds, she didn't say a word. Then she finally spoke. "You don't just own your lot," she said carefully. "What do you mean?" "You own the shoreline." I laughed. "No, I don't." "Yes, you do," she replied. "Every inch of it." I stopped talking. Renata continued. "Your grandfather purchased shoreline rights when the lake was originally developed. According to these records, the HOA doesn't own the shoreline at all. In fact, they never have." I slowly sat down. My mind struggled to process what she was telling me. Every dock, every waterfront access point, every section of shoreline around the lake. Legally, it belonged to my family. At first, I felt vindicated. Then another feeling replaced it. Dread. Because if those records were accurate, then Linda's violation notice had no legal foundation whatsoever. And people like Linda rarely react well when they realize they're losing control. I still tried to resolve things peacefully. I mailed a copy of the deed directly to the HOA office, assuming common sense would finally end the dispute. It didn't. Linda ignored the documents completely. Then she escalated. The very next morning, contractors arrived at my property with instructions to remove the unauthorized structure. I stepped into my driveway and blocked their truck. The deed paperwork was tucked under my arm like a shield. This is private property. I told them, you have no authority to touch that dock. The contractor looked uncomfortable. Linda sat in her car, watching the scene unfold. Then she climbed out and gave me the same smile she always used when she thought she was winning. We'll let a judge decide that, she said. But while Renata continued digging through county records, she uncovered something about Linda that neither of us expected. What Renata uncovered next was something Linda never imagined anyone would find. For 4 years, she had quietly added a charge to homeowners' dues called a shoreline maintenance fee, nearly $300 every year. According to Linda, the money was being used for dock repairs, shoreline preservation, and maintaining lake access areas. There was only one problem. None of those records existed. No permits, no contracts, no invoices, no maintenance reports. Nothing, because the shoreline had never belonged to the HOA in the first place. They had no legal responsibility to maintain it, which meant Linda had been collecting money for property she never had authority over. At that point, this wasn't simply a dispute over HOA rules. It was something much more serious. I immediately requested an emergency HOA meeting. The turnout was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The room was overflowing. People who normally ignored meetings suddenly couldn't wait to attend. News spreads quickly in a lake community. Linda began the meeting exactly the way she always did. She talked about violations, property values, neighborhood standards. The same speech everyone had heard 100 times before. Then Renata stood up. Without saying a word, she connected her laptop to the projector and displayed the deed for everyone in the room. The shoreline map filled the screen. She pointed directly at it. This property, she said, belongs to my client, not the homeowners association. The room fell silent. Then she continued. Every dock on this lake sits on land owned by him. A wave of shocked whispers moved through the crowd. But Renata wasn't finished. She delivered the second revelation moments later. For the last 4 years, she said calmly, the HOA president has been charging residents fees related to shoreline maintenance and access rights on property the association does not own. The color drained from Linda's face. She immediately tried to defend herself. Those funds were used for community improvements, she said. Renata nodded. Then show us the documentation. Linda froze. Show us the invoices. Nothing. Show us the maintenance records. Still nothing. The silence said everything. One by one, residents started raising their hands. Some demanded explanations. Others wanted refunds. Several openly called for Linda's resignation before the meeting was even over. Then something happened that nobody expected. Walt spoke. For years, he had quietly agreed with everything Linda proposed. But this time was different. I told you we should have verified the deed, he muttered. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Everyone heard it. Linda immediately snapped back. This is still my board. Her voice shook with frustration. I built this community. A resident near the back stood up. No, he shouted. You built a scam. The room exploded. People were talking over one another. Documents were being passed around. Questions were flying from every direction. The meeting dissolved into complete chaos. Before any final vote could be completed, Linda stormed out. 2 weeks later, her position as HOA president was officially terminated. Not long after that, county officials opened an investigation into the shoreline fees. Several homeowners filed formal complaints and demanded repayment for years of charges they now believed were improper. As for my dock, nothing happened to it. No removal crews, no fines, no threats. It remained exactly where it had always been, right where my father and I built it. But the story didn't end there. because once the records became public, everyone learned something else. Since I legally own the land beneath every dock around the lake, homeowners needed formal agreements establishing their access rights. I handled it the simplest way possible. No intimidation, no endless fees, no power trips, just straightforward paperwork and fair terms. The exact opposite of the environment Linda had created. Ironically, Walt became the next HOA president. The first action he took was eliminating the Shoreline maintenance fee entirely. No debates, no excuses, just gone. Every now and then I still see Linda walking her dog along the road near the lake. Whenever she passes my dock, she keeps her eyes focused straight ahead. She never looks in my direction. People sometimes ask whether I feel bad for what happened to her. The answer is simple. I don't. Authority without integrity never lasts forever. Sooner or later the truth catches up. Linda's mistake was believing nobody would ever question her claims. In the end, everything unraveled because of the one piece of property she assumed belonged to her without ever checking. And that assumption cost her everything. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that acted like it owned things it legally didn't, then you probably understand exactly why this ending feels so satisfying. And if you enjoyed this HOA Revenge story, make sure you're subscribed, because the next HOA nightmare is somehow even crazier than this one.